I know if you've been on the internet for 5 seconds, or if you're on like dating sites or in the dating world right now, you've probably heard the phrase, I'm the prize, or women are the prize. And more recently, you've probably even heard people saying men are the prize because it's getting weird out here. But today we're getting into all the I'm the prize variations.
Hey, girlfriends, welcome to another episode of Girlfriends and Goals. We're your hosts, Miosha
And Samaria.
This podcast is a space where we'll talk about friendships, life goals, a little bit of pop culture, and all things womanhood.
Our top goal this year is to grow our podcast audience. So if you're new here or you're an avid listener of this podcast, please subscribe, leave us a 5-star rating, write a review, and be sure to share this episode with a girlfriend or two.
We're going to jump into our first segment today, which is called Girl What's Good, where we talk about things we've been loving for the past couple of weeks. It could be a book, a bottle of wine, a store, anything that we've been loving. So, Samaria, what's been good with you?
Okay, so my Girl What's Good is a book this time, and it's a book by Pastor Cal Roberson. So if you watch Married at First Sight, he's one of the experts on the show. And right now we're actually reviewing Married at First Sight season 14 on our YouTube channel. So if you like that show, definitely check out our YouTube channel and subscribe to it, because we always do a review every week of the episode. But so Pastor Cal wrote a book called Marriage Ain't for Punks. And that's what I've been reading over the last few months. This is my first book that I got on Audible, and I really liked it. Some of the stuff that he says on there, you would think it's just like regular practical things that everybody knows. But I think when he gives the examples of couples that he's worked with and why those things became a problem, it becomes more clear like why this type of stuff needs to be put in a book, just for people to hear. So I think it's a good read, whether you're unmarried, in a relationship, married, divorced, like whatever your relationship status. I do think you can find something that's relatable and you can learn something from this book. So yeah, it's called Marriage Ain't for Punks by Pastor Cal.
All right. So my what's good is a food item. So if you're still in the market for something sweet to give your special someone, I would highly recommend that you get them Crumble Cookies. And it's kind of like a cookie bakery, but it's a franchise. So I feel like they're in most major cities at this point. But I myself, I wouldn't say that I'm a huge sweets person, but when I tell you, these cookies are amazing. And they change their menu, if not every week, I think it's every day or every other day. So if you like variety or you don't want the same cookie every single time you go, is definitely worth giving it a try. It's called Crumble Cookies, spelled Crumble. And yeah, so far, I think my favorite cookie that they've put out has been their churro cookie. And it's basically like a churro stick, but in cookie form. So yeah, if you're still in the market for something sweet and you want to try something different other than just the traditional chocolates or Hershey's Kisses that many people give out during this time of year, I'd highly recommend it.
Okay, so if I don't get me a crumble cookie from my best friend, then I'm gonna know I'm not really loved.
Listen, I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say on air.
Say it, so the people can know how you treat me behind the scenes.
No, I'll save it for after.
Oh man, by the way, his name is Roberson. It's just, it sounded wrong when I started to say it, but it is Cal Roberson. So
And we'll
Yeah.
have it linked in the show notes.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So, since it's February, which of course that means Valentine's Day is taking over our grocery stores, it's taking over like all the commercials and whatnot. This month, we're going to have some fun, like dating topics and guests that we can't wait to share with you. But for today's topic, I know if you've been on the internet for 5 seconds, or if you're on like dating sites or in the dating world right now, you've probably heard the phrase, I'm the prize, or women are the prize. And more recently, you've probably even heard people saying men are the prize because it's getting weird out here. But today we're getting into all the I'm the prize variations and talking about why this phrase is so controversial. And more recently, you've probably even heard people saying men are the prize because it's getting weird out here. But today we're getting into all the I'm the prize variations and talking about why this phrase is so controversial. Should it even be something that we're saying at all? Or is it maybe time to retire the phrase completely? So I'll start with you, Miyosha. Why do you think women say things like I'm the prize? Because it's mostly heard from women.
Right. I'd say whenever I've heard a woman say, I'm the prize, which I can't even say that I've heard this being said very often in real life.
Okay.
And I'm not heavy on the internet streets like that. So I can't say that I'm seeing it all the time, but I have seen it. I'd say that usually when a woman says this, it's in response to a man who may be trying to use feminism or independence as a reason why they don't have to be in that pursuit position at the initial stages of a relationship. So they'll say things like, oh, well, y'all want it to be equal, so go ahead and do what men do. Or why do we have to pursue y'all? If y'all want to be equal, you can pursue us too. So I usually hear it being said more so as a reminder, like, hey, I'm the prize here. So let's not switch things around. Don't get it twisted. I'm the prize. So that's usually when I hear it. What about you?
Okay, so I usually hear it from women, but I will say the very first time I heard this was when I went to a Family Feud taping here in Atlanta. And Steve Harvey was the host then. I don't even know if Family Feud is still going, but he was the host then. And that's something that he said in response to a young girl's question. He was like, you want to remember that, you know, you are the prize, women are the prize. So I just went out there. The first time I heard this, it was not from a woman. It was, in fact, from a man. People have their opinions about Steve Harvey, and rightfully so. But I just wanted it out there that a man was the one who said it. But I think, honestly, it's probably just a way to get men to understand that women not only want effort, but they deserve it because they're valuable. That, like, if you're interested in a lady, you should also be interested in treating her well, treating her like she's valuable, hence the prize. But I also think of how much like the right woman can elevate her partner and how that's such a beautiful thing. Like I remember my dad telling this story about how he used to work out of town, and whenever he would get paid, he would just send the money to my mom. And the last thing that he remembered her saying before he went was, we need to start building a house because, you know, in Liberia, that's what you do. So yeah, she would tell him like, hey, we need to start building a house. And he's like, oh, we don't make enough money for that. So he would send his money back. And when he finally came from out of town, she had already put the foundation down. So she had done something that he honestly thought was impossible. But because she was resourceful, find like the right price for things, the right people to do things, she had already put down a foundation. So I think like if you're a man and you want a family, like even if you think about the effort into getting a family, right? Like the woman bears the brunt of that. It's like a group project where the woman does 98% of the work, 99.3.
Listen.
Like, honestly, 100 is obviously pushing it, but you know, where the woman does more. So I think just with those things in mind, like the value that a woman brings, like what's a little bit of consistency, what's a little bit of making her feel nice. So I think, yeah, I think that's why women say is because like there's a lot that women just bring
Mm-hmm.
And I think they want it to be appreciated. So I think that's why they say I'm the prize.
Okay. So you're on these internet streets a bit more than me. I feel like you have your finger on the pulse a bit more. So I want to know from you, why do you think this is so controversial?
I feel like it's controversial because everybody's not for everybody. So I think if there's a woman who's out here saying, I'm the prize, but she meets this young man and he's like, I didn't think she was like that valuable, or I didn't think she was all that, but she was out here shouting on the prize. I think they might take that one experience where maybe this woman just wasn't for you and then generalize it to all women. So they might take that and say, oh, well, women always think they're the prize, but they're really not bringing much. And it's like, maybe that person just didn't have the things that you're looking for specifically.
Right.
I don't think that's something you should generalize to all women. So yeah, I think it just became controversial because men felt like, maybe some of the women they were running into weren't the prize, but perhaps they were saying that. And I think a lot of times when women say I'm the prize, I believe that men aren't valuable, or like men should be treated any kind of way. And so I think the way that they hear it is what sparks this controversy, because, men also want to feel wanted and feel valued. So maybe they take this as a threat to them being treated properly, but that's not even the case.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think?
So I guess before we went down this conversation, I didn't realize, I guess, how controversial it was. I'd have, I guess, your similar sentiments of maybe you've encountered a woman where she just wasn't interested in you, and maybe you were continuing to pursue her. Like, I could see how some guys would get frustrated with that process, or could it be maybe the way they were raised? I'm not sure. They just don't see themselves as having to be in that pursuit position. So they're just approaching it from a different mindset. So if you're encountering a woman who's like, no, this is what I expect of you and what you should be doing. Yeah, I could see where that can cause some division.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess I put it on more so the woman not being what that man wants, just because I think like that happens out here. Like,
yeah,
you might have the expectation that a man is supposed to pursue and a man is supposed to do whatever things. So if you run into a man who's like, I'm not interested in that, that's just not the man for you. But another woman who's like, oh, I don't mind putting forth the effort. I don't mind starting things. I don't mind, I don't want to say pursuing, but I don't mind taking on that role. That would be the perfect one for him. So it's like, you're still a prize, right? If we have to use that term, you're still a prize. It's just, you can't be a prize to everybody. Like, not everybody's going to find value in you. Like, even me, I know like I'm not for certain people. There are certain things that I want or believe strongly, and I don't think other people would, I don't think certain men will find that valuable, and that's okay. Like, they're not supposed to, they're not for me,
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay, so what I want to ask you is, saying I'm the prize something that you would say or think? And if so, why or why not?
No, this isn't something that I would say to a man. And I don't think I'd say it to a friend either, just in conversation. But I have been told by a certain person close to me that I do have the attitude of I'm the prize, even though I may not outwardly say it. So I guess the answer is yes, but no.
Interesting. What were they saying that to you as like a bad thing, or how did they mean it?
No, I don't think they meant it as a bad thing. It was just more observation of like, oh yeah, I did notice this about you. I didn't care. It didn't bother me. So you didn't have to, even though you didn't say it, that attitude was there. And so, yeah, it's not something I'd say, but apparently it's something that others have picked up on. What about you?
I don't know that I would say this to a man either.
Yeah.
And it's not because I'm not, like I don't think I'm not a prize because your girl's a catch or whatever. But I think just in my life, I haven't been in a situation where it was necessary to say that. So I guess I'm having a hard time imagining a situation where I would say it. Like
Mm-hmm.
maybe you would say it if like a guy isn't treating you properly and you want to remind him of your value. But even in that scenario, I would say either one, he sees my value or he doesn't. Like I can't make him see it. So there's no point in me saying, oh, I'm the prize. You need to remember that.
Right.
Or if I did have to remind someone like, hey, I don't like how you're treating me and you need to be treating me better because I'm a whole catch, maybe I find another way. Like I probably wouldn't say, well, you better treat me better. I'm the prize. I might point to a specific action that the person did or didn't do that caused me to feel undervalued. And then
Mm-hmm.
by pointing to that thing, I might say, hey, don't do this or do this more. But
Right.
the situation where I would like say it, or I can't imagine somebody saying it, is maybe to like themselves. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're a woman who might be in a relationship or you're out here dating and you feel like you're not getting the treatment that you want and you're questioning, okay, should I just settle for it or not? I think in that type of situation, you have to remind yourself like, hey, I have a lot, like I possess a lot of good characteristics and I don't deserve somebody treating me poorly. So you just have to remind yourself that you're valuable so that you're not accepting whatever somebody is putting out.
Yeah. I could see that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and if you were in the situation where I think you would say it to a man as a reminder,
Mm.
I just think that if you have to keep doing it, that would get old very quick and just make
Yeah.
things a bit awkward that you're having to verbalize your value or to remind them of your value. Um, yeah, that would get awkward.
Exactly. And I stand by what I said. There is just no way someone isn't seeing your value and you can like show them and now automatically they, like they see what you bring. I just have a hard time believing that that type of a thing is possible. Like you're not going to see my value just by me saying I'm valuable. And that's okay. Like I should probably go somewhere else where someone naturally sees everything that I offer. Like I think when we had Marlissa on here, she was just saying like it's never going to be too much for the right person.
Mm-hmm.
And like I always think about that because I'm like, that's so true. Like all your little quirks and stuff like that, like the weirdest things about you, there might be someone out there who appreciates them. Jessie Wu did
Oh,
a
yeah.
video about this guy that she was recently seeing. I love Jessie Wu, by the way. I think she's hilarious. But she did a video about this guy that she was seeing, and he said something to her like, uh, she wants to be the man, or she's always emasculating him, something like that he said.
Mm-hmm.
And she gave the example of one of her friends who she works with. And he's like, hey, remember that time like you stepped in and did XYZ for me? And she's like, yeah, what about it? He said, man, that's exactly what every woman needs to do. Like, I want a woman who does those things. So like the exact things that she was doing for the guy who she dated and he didn't appreciate, someone else did. And so, yeah, I struggle with believing that you can show somebody your value in a romantic
Mm-hmm.
situation. I feel like they either see it or they don't. And if they don't, that's your clue.
Yeah, and not just value, but I think if they're genuinely interested in you and
Yeah.
pursuing the relationship, you won't have to be on them about how often they're doing it, what they're doing. People go for things that they want. And when
Yeah.
they don't, it shows. It's as simple as that.
It's true. Like you shouldn't have to beg for consistency or for effort. It's like, okay, if you don't see it for me, you don't see it for me. And again, that is okay. If you want to waste my time, I'm not going to let you do it. Like like we have the ability to remove ourselves as well.
Exactly. So how do you feel about men saying this, I'm the prize, or having similar sentiments? Because as you mentioned in the opening, things are getting weird and men are definitely out here saying it.
It's giving me like big all lives matter energy. like how all lives matter wasn't a thing that people said until Black people started saying Black lives matter. That's how I feel about this. So it would be one thing if men were the ones who initiated this, if they were the ones who were saying, hey, we're feeling really unappreciated and we need you guys to know that we're valuable too. That would be one thing. But because it's specifically in response to women saying this, and they're trying to hijack a statement that women more often say, it's giving big all lives matter energy.
Okay. I'm going to say, I think it's okay.
Okay. Please say more. I have to look, you got to say more so that I can know whether or not we can associate with each other after this episode.
I'll say that this isn't something that I would want to hear or that I would think is attractive or okay for a man to say. But I think people are human. They can do however they please. They can have the freedom to do so, even if people won't accept it. Mm-hmm. But I do know for a fact that a lot of women would be okay with a guy either having that type of attitude or sentiments or even saying it out loud. Like them giving that energy won't scare them off, or even if they say it, especially if she's okay with being in that pursuit position, which some women are, and or if she thinks she has a high value man on the table, she may be more willing to, maybe excuse those sentiments, especially if he's quote unquote high value, which, I wish we could retire that phrase. But yeah, I think it's okay. And as you said earlier, there's someone out there for everyone. And many women may be put off by it, but a lot won't, especially if he's a guy that has XYZ. And that's exactly what that woman is looking for.
Okay. I'm going to ask it this way. If one of your friends who was really close to you, like me, came to you and said, oh, Miosha, this person said he's the prize, and I'm really thinking about going on a second date with him, what would you say?
Girl, go if you wanted to be a struggle. You wanted to be a whole struggle?
Okay, if you want to be a struggle. Okay.
I'll be serious. Yes, I would not advise my friend that like, hey, this is a guy that you should pursue a relationship with just because I know you. And I don't see how, not even how it would end well, but just the experience of the relationship. I don't know that would align with what you're looking for. However, I will say I do have a friend that is close to me that is a man. And even though he may not like outright say I'm the prize, he does have those sentiments. And there's no shortage of women who are interested and willing. So
there need to be. Actually, I'll take that back. Sorry. Do what you want. Do what you want. Okay, so since we're talking about men who think they're the prize, this had to come up. So I think it might have been 2 years ago at this point, because the way these years are racking up, I think it was 2 years ago, there was this guy who put on the internet that he was the prize. But the way that he did it, I actually pulled it up today because I knew we were doing this episode and that this would come up. I am going to read some of what he said. Okay. Mm-hmm. So he said, now that I'm barred and licensed, I guess he had just graduated from law school or whatever, Now that I'm barred and licensed, I've entered into a new arena of Black men. And in this arena, all caps, I'm the prize now. Don't just take my word for it, though. And before you kill me in the comments, let me drop some stats for your beep right quick so you can see my point. And then he goes on to say how Black women outnumber Black men. Black women don't want to deal with certain Black men. Black women typically don't want to date down. I guess people who aren't lawyers would be dating down, quote unquote. Okay, I think that was his last point, but he just went into more detail about that last point. But yeah, so how did, of course, the internet just took this man and like literally ran him through the mud, as they should have. But how do you feel about that type of a sentiment, especially towards Black women?
Yeah, unfortunately, I'm not surprised. He was just the first guy that I saw like put it out on a platform. But I think some women have seen that type of energy and attitude up close and personal in real life. And so, yeah, I wouldn't agree with it. I was just shocked that it's kind of like how you may feel a certain way or say certain things in private, but I was just shocked that he put it out there on a public platform, which kind of just made me believe like, okay, are you trolling? Do you want to get dragged? Do you want stardom? Do you want followers? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wasn't that surprised because I have noticed that type of attitude with certain men who are well educated, have come from a certain background. Once they feel like they've made it, they do have that attitude of, okay, well, the women should be chasing me.
You know what's funny? I think he might have updated this status before whoever took this screenshot took it, because I am 100% sure that he failed the bar after making that status. And so that was one of the points where people were dragging him online, because it's like, you failed the bar. Like, you have other things to be worried about than Black women and who's the prize and who's not. How about you keep your head in the books? So I'm pretty sure that's an updated status, because I don't think he was barred when he said that. But also I think there's this tendency to, I guess, as a man, equate status, which we don't even know if that's wealth. Like, we don't know how much he had to pay back for law school. We don't know what his job was like, but there is kind of this tendency to equate the prize with money or a certain status. And it's like, no, you can still be barred and not a suitable partner for any of us. Like, Black women don't have to be interested in you just because you're a lawyer now. Like, there are multiple options. There are other things that somebody wants in a partner besides, oh, he's a lawyer. Like, you can be a lawyer and not be kind. You can be a lawyer and not want to be a provider if that's what some women are looking for. So there are so many things that can be wrong with you still. So if you're trash and you don't know the requirements, just say that.
Yeah. And especially him exposing his mindset. So it's like, okay, even if you thought yourself to be of whatever value, now your potential partner, this is all over the internet now, they have a peek into the way that you think.
Yep.
So,
and that's probably why they didn't want him in the beginning. Like, you literally just showed people why not to want you, and
it gave me just salty vibes. It's like, ooh, look, see, in your face, look what I have now. Now all y'all are gonna want me. It's like, no, we still don't want you.
Don't.
Next. You remember that show on MTV?
I used to love that show. Room Raiders, Next, all of them. Girl, I used to be glued to the TV.
That's what I think. Whenever you finish reading whatever he said, next. Well, we're showing our age now.
Oh, that show was so disrespectful. Like, sometimes I remember one time this girl came, she had just gotten off the bus, and the guy was like, oh, what type of foods do you like? And she said, I don't really eat like that. And he said, so Like, who doesn't eat, sis? Oh,
Mm.
man.
Now that we've talked about men and them thinking that they may be the prize, I
Mm-hmm.
want to know, how far into the relationship do you think this mentality, and we're talking from the woman's perspective
Uh-huh.
back to us, do you think this mentality of being the prize should go? Like, is this something that you think should end at the dating phase or a
Mm-hmm.
certain point in the dating phase? Does it continue through engagement, marriage? Like, where does it end?
Yeah. I think that's a good question, but it's hard to say like a hard cutoff point. I will say at the very least, like early dating days, like within the first few months, um, I think you definitely need to be bringing that type of an energy of, hey, I want to treat you well, you know? And it's not just a matter of how much money you spend, you know? It's, are you consistent? Are you like checking on me? Does my well-being concern you? That type of thing. And that's not to say like you should just treat a woman nicely in relationships and not expect reciprocity, you know, because men are human too. And like I have nephews and stuff like that. And I would also want them to be treated well. But I think if I were to ever have a conversation with one of them, it would be like, hey, you do want to be the one to initiate this. So yeah, I don't think it should go that far past like once you decide, okay, we are serious. Yes, that person still has to value you. But I do think like reciprocity should increase as time goes on.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that makes sense, but what do you think?
I think that it should go as far as both people agree to how far it should go.
That's fair.
And especially if you see the I'm the prize, meaning as the person who's pursuing or putting in X amount of energy or effort, I
Mm-hmm.
think it's okay to keep some of that same energy if that's what works for you and your partner, if it's what you agree to. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that this is one of the areas where people should discuss and establish early on, just like what are the expectations
Mm-hmm.
is in the different phases of the relationship. So dating,
Yeah.
pre-marriage engagement, marriage, now okay, you're just living your life. It makes me think about how sometimes you'll hear not even married couples, but not even just married couples, but people who've been in relationships for an extended period of time. So for a few years, where you
Mm-hmm.
may hear them say things like, oh, well, you used to do this and this, but you don't do that anymore. Or you were putting in so much effort and now, I don't know if you're as interested in me. And it just makes me think that like there are some people who do get into relationships and they get comfortable. I guess that's maybe my nice way of putting it. They get maybe lazy.
You could have left it the nice way. I have no problem with that.
But, this is something that I think we've all heard people give their sentiments on. So I think just establishing like, what are the expectations? If you are that woman who's like, hey, this is what I want, and I want that same energy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not necessarily touching on the reciprocity piece because I think that shows up in different ways depending on your love language. And I
Yeah.
don't want to get too detailed on that. But if that's what you expect, I think that that's okay as long as you and your partner are aligned on it. And if you say, hey, I still expect, us to date, even though we've been married, I don't know, however many years, or I expect certain things because
Mm-hmm.
you were doing that in the early days, like, hey, this is what I want. I think that if that's what you want, you communicate it. If they agree to it, then that's okay.
So I agree with you on okay, as far as each of the people like might let it go. But I do think, right, there is, or I've seen more recently, kind of this expectation that, okay, as a woman, I'm gonna always be receiving things and never have to give. And when I say give, I'm not talking about like in the same way. For example, like, I'm not saying buy somebody all these gifts, but if it's someone who like likes words of affirmation, like go ahead and hype that person up, every once in a while doing something kind. But I just want to add that, like, as long as you're aware that it's not necessarily all about you all the time, unless that's your relationship. I don't think most are that way. And so I do just want to make sure I throw that out there because, again, like, these are human beings that we're dealing with. They also probably want acts of kindness, not necessarily in return, but they just want acts of kindness. It's not a tit for tat situation where, oh, you bought me roses, so I will, I don't know, buy you Jordans. Those aren't even the same. Those aren't the same level. That's just all I could think about at the moment. But yeah, I do think like some level of kindness should be shown. Some type of reciprocity should be shown.
Do you think though that, like, say a man, if he finds himself in that type of relationship where he feels like there's whatever type of reciprocity or acts of kindness, I'm not sure, whatever he's looking for in return, that he wouldn't just remove himself from the relationship if those things aren't there?
Probably. I mean, if he were my friend, okay, so if he were my friend and he had gotten into something serious with somebody, I would maybe be like, hey, it's okay to tell this person that you want this. Like, it's okay to communicate your needs. And if that person's like, oh, well, I don't see myself being the type to provide that, then definitely remove yourself. But it's the same thing that I would tell a friend, right? Like, if there's something that you feel like is lacking, and that you can't go with, like, that you have to have, then communicate that. But if they feel like that's not something that they should be giving, then you can absolutely remove yourself from the relationship. But yeah, I just say that because I have heard situations with male friends where it's like, I didn't have a problem giving, but it was like, man, I want to feel cared for too, And so I do just want to put that out there, like, hey, we're all human beings. And yeah, somebody might be encouraged to give selflessly, but they might want an act of kindness in return as well. And of course, I'm not suggesting, I'm trying to cover all my bases here, but no, I'm not suggesting to compromise on anything that you don't want to. Like that, I will draw the line there. Like, I'm not compromising. If I went in saying, hey, this is not something that I can compromise on, it's not something I'm going to compromise on. So that's not what I'm talking about. I'm mostly talking about, like, you still have to be nice to this person. Like, you shouldn't just want them to be nice to you all the time and then you not, like, also show kindness to them. That's all. I hope I said that right, because I'm not trying to get attacked on these internet streets, but that's just how I feel about it. So yeah. Okay. Did you have any final thoughts on the prize, or something you think like women should keep in mind when it comes to that topic?
Yeah, so I'd say saying I'm the prize, or if you are a person who maybe if you're that person who wants to let men know verbally, like, hey, I'm the prize, just know that it can be off-putting for some men and even for some women to hear that. It can be off-putting. But I will say, for every person who sees it as off-putting, that there are some men who don't care. They're just like, oh, okay, this is what she thinks and what she wants, and they can decide from there if they want to continue on that path. I don't see the phrase of women saying I'm the prize as any different than any other stance you may take on something that could be off-putting for other people. Like Samaria said, there's something out there for everyone. I will say, though, that if you do take that stance of, hey, I'm the prize, just make sure that you're aligning yourself with the person who's on the same page as far as whatever you mean by that. So whatever the meaning is for you, just make sure that you are with someone or connected with someone who's aligned with that way of thinking, just so that there's less drama, less confusion, and it just hopefully leads to it not being a waste of time. And this goes for any other area where I think you should just try your best to be in alignment with the person so the relationship could be a better experience.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. Also, I would like to vote to just retire this phrase altogether. I am tired of I'm tired of just like the controversy around it, all that it brings up. But if we were to retire it, right? Obviously, I'm saying that in a joking manner, but if we were to retire, I think we should definitely replace it with more productive ways of saying we have value. Like, I do not have a problem with women shouting this. Like I said earlier, I do think there are things that women bring that are just so valuable. And I do think that men in general need to recognize that, and to recognize that if there's a woman who you feel like isn't bringing the value that you seek, then maybe that's somebody else's girl. Like, maybe that's somebody else who can bring value to another person. But that does not mean that you take that one experience and generalize it to all women. Yeah, so I think we should replace it with more productive ways of saying we have value, and make sure that if someone isn't seeing the value, that we either communicate it or just remove ourselves completely from the situation. Because like Miosha was saying, like, if that's something you want and it's something you feel like you deserve and you can't live without, then you should go for it. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. You've heard our thoughts on this topic, but we'd love to hear your thoughts as well. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Girlfriends and Goals podcast, where we'll continue this conversation over the next week. If you haven't subscribed already, please go ahead and do that now. Don't forget to rate, review, and share. Until next time, bye.
Bye.